Commander Vex prided himself on three things: his impeccable administrative record, his 7 advanced degrees in galactic law, and the fact that in his 200 years running the Galactic Academy, nothing had ever gone wrong on his watch. Nothing. Not a single incident. He had a plaque that said so, mounted right above his desk next to his collection of efficiency awards. Which is why, when every screen in his office suddenly flashed red and started blaring an alarm that sounded like a dying space whale, Vex did what any reasonable administrator would do. He screamed like a hatchling and dove under his desk. The alarm stopped. Silence filled the office. Slowly, very slowly, Vex emerged from his hiding spot, straightening his ceremonial robes and pretending that never happened. His dignity was intact. The security footage would mysteriously disappear later. Nobody needed to know. He approached his main terminal, which was now displaying a message in ancient galactic standard, the kind nobody had used since before his great-great-grandmother was born. The text pulsed ominously. Ghost file activated. Terran contingency protocol engaged. Threat level existential administrator authorization required. Vex stared at the screen. Then he stared some more. Then he did what he always did when confronted with something he didn't understand. He checked the manual. All 47 volumes of it. There was nothing about a ghost file, nothing about Terrans, and absolutely nothing about existential threats, because those weren't supposed to exist at the Galactic Academy, the most prestigious and safe educational institution in known space. He tried turning it off. The screen just blinked at him mockingly. He tried rebooting the system. The message got bigger. He tried unplugging it. The message appeared on his coffee maker. Okay, Vex said to the empty office, his voice climbing an octave. Okay, this is fine. This is manageable. I am a professional. He pressed the authorization button with one trembling tentacle. What happened next would haunt him for the rest of his very long life. The screen exploded with data, files upon files dating back 10,000 years, all marked with a single word in red, Terran. And then he saw it. The warning message, written in increasingly desperate fonts, as if whoever typed it was slowly losing their mind. To whoever reads this, the Terrans are coming back. You cannot stop them. You can only prepare. May the cosmic forces have mercy on your soul, because the humans certainly will not. They will smile. They will say please and thank you. And then they will break everything while somehow making it better. You have been warned. Do not ignore this file. Do not ignore this file. For the love of all that is stable and predictable in this universe, do not ignore this file. Vex read it 3 times. Then he called an emergency meeting. He had a very bad feeling about this. Kip had been having a perfectly good morning until his communicator started screaming at him. Not buzzing. Not ringing. Screaming. In what sounded like 17 different alien languages simultaneously, none of which were pleasant. Good, good. He rolled out of his sleeping pod, smacked his head on the ceiling because he always forgot about the ceiling, and answered the call while rubbing the bump that was definitely going to bruise. What? Kip, my office, now. Commander Vex's voice had that special quality that meant someone was having a worse day than Kip, which immediately improved Kip's mood. 20 minutes later, Kip stood in Vex's office, watching the administrator pace back and forth like a caged quill beast. The screens surrounding them displayed what looked like the digital equivalent of a history book having a nervous breakdown. You're a linguist, Vex said, not quite looking at Kip. You can read ancient languages. That's literally my job, yes. I need you to translate this ghost file, all of it, by tomorrow. Kip looked at the screens. Then he looked at Vex. Then he looked at the screens again. There had to be thousands of documents. You're joking. Do I look like I'm joking? Kip studied Vex's face. The commander's skin had turned a pale shade of green that, in his species, usually indicated either extreme stress or mild poisoning. Fair point. What am I translating? Everything about Terrans. What's a Terran? Vex's expression suggested he'd just asked what oxygen was. That's what you're going to tell me. 6 hours later, Kip had learned several things. First, his eyeballs could hurt. Like, really hurt. Second, Coffee was amazing, even if it was technically a mild stimulant that his species wasn't supposed to consume. Third, humans were absolutely insane. The ghost file contained warnings in 47 different human languages. 47. And they all contradicted each other, which Kip was pretty sure was deliberate. One document, written in something called English, warned future administrators to lock down all chemistry labs and, for the love of everything holy, hide the duct tape. Another document in Mandarin simply said, "Good luck, you will need it more than you can possibly imagine." A third, in Spanish, was just a recipe for something called tequila, with a note that said, "You'll understand why you need this by day 3. But the real treasure was the security footage. Kip found hours and hours of archived video from 10,000 years ago, back when humans apparently attended the academy. He watched, transfixed, as a young human female somehow befriended a Krillian death beast by offering it something called a belly rub. The death beast, a creature that had killed 17 trained warriors, rolled over like a domesticated pet. In another clip, a human male accidentally created a new form of propulsion by mixing 2 chemicals that were clearly labeled, "Do not mix, under any circumstances." The resulting explosion launched him through 3 walls. He walked away laughing. There was footage of humans turning a mandatory survival course into a competitive sport. Of humans teaching quantum physics to species that didn't have the brain structure to understand it. Of humans organizing a campus-wide party that somehow resulted in a peace treaty between 2 warring species. And there, at the bottom of the file, Kip found the expulsion order. Dated exactly 10,000 years ago. Reason for expulsion. Creative problem-solving has reached unacceptable levels. Student body safety can no longer be guaranteed. Human enrollment suspended indefinitely pending review. Kip scrolled down further and found the review notes. There were entries every century for 5,000 years. Each one said the same thing. Petition to reinstate human enrollment. Denied. Then 5,000 years ago, the entries stopped. Everyone just forgot about humans. Until now, Kip called Vex. "Commander, we have a problem." "Another one?" "The humans are coming back to the academy. Their enrollment was approved by the Galactic Council 3 months ago. They arrive next week." The sound Vex made wasn't technically in any known language, but Kip understood it perfectly. It was the sound of someone's entire worldview collapsing in real time. "Nobody," Vex said slowly, "told me this. It's in your unread messages, about 400 emails down." There was a long pause. Then Vex said in a very small voice, "We're doomed." "Yep," Kip agreed cheerfully. "Want to read the incident reports? They're hilarious." "No. I'm sending them anyway." The crisis meeting was held in the Academy's most secure conference room, which Vex had chosen specifically because it had no windows, no decorations, and an atmosphere of crushing bureaucratic efficiency that usually made problems go away through sheer administrative intimidation. It wasn't working. Kip sat across from Chief of Security Thork, a towering member of the Kralgarian warrior caste who looked like someone had given him mountain muscles and then taught it hand-to-hand combat. Thork had never lost a fight, never backed down from a challenge, and had once stared down an invading fleet until they apologized and left. Right now, Thork looked confused. "Let me understand this correctly," Thork rumbled, his voice like grinding boulders. "You called an emergency meeting because some tiny soft species is enrolling in the academy." "Not just any species," Vex said, pulling up the ghost file on the main display. "Humans, also known as Terrans. Also known as the only species in galactic history to be expelled from this academy for being too unpredictable." Thork snorted. "Unpredictable does not mean dangerous." "Read the file," Kip suggested, sliding a datapad across the table. "Start with the section titled, 'Why We Don't Keep Duct Tape on Campus Anymore.'" While Thork read, Vex pulled up the Ghost File's official recommendations for human students. The list was extensive. Disturbingly extensive. "Remove all duct tape, zip ties, paper clips, and rubber bands from campus storage," Vex read aloud. "Ban the import of beverages containing caffeine, sugar, or anything labeled energy drink. Install common sense sensors in all laboratories. Increase insurance coverage by 4,000%. Assign a dedicated medical team trained in treating species that shouldn't have survived, but did anyway. And this one's my favorite. Establish a direct communication line with human emergency services, because we will need them. This is ridiculous, Thorke said, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. He was on page 47 of the incident reports. No species can be this chaotic and still function. They function, Kip said. They just function in ways that violate several laws of physics and all laws of common sense. Vex started implementing protocols. He sent out campus-wide memos. He scheduled mandatory safety briefings. He personally inspected every laboratory to ensure they were human-proofed, whatever that meant. He was in the middle of his third inspection, when every screen on campus simultaneously displayed the same message. Hi, we're your new students from Earth. We got your acceptance letter and we're super excited. We did some research on your security systems and wow, they're pretty good. We made a few suggestions for improvements and uploaded them to your mainframe. Hope that's okay. Can't wait to meet everyone. By the way, is it true you have a zero-gravity cafeteria? Because that sounds awesome. See you next week. Actually, scratch that. We're coming early. Hope that's cool. Humanity out. The message disappeared. In their place was a single file labeled Human Suggestions for a Better Academy.exe. Vex stared at it. Then he looked at Kip. Then at Thorke. Then he did what any rational administrator would do in his position. He opened a bottle of the Terran tequila recipe from the ghost file and drank directly from it. Commander, Thorke said carefully, are you okay? No, Vex said. No, I am not okay. They hacked our system from another solar system. They're arriving early, and they think the zero-gravity cafeteria sounds awesome. He took another drink. We're going to die. We're not going to die, Kip said, though he didn't sound convinced. A new message popped up on screen. P.S. We're already here. Our shuttle landed 5 minutes ago. Where do we check in? Vex put his head down on the desk and made a sound like a deflating balloon. The humans had arrived early. Of course they had. Jake Hawkins had never been to space before, which was probably why he thought crash landing on the Academy's ceremonial lawn was a perfectly reasonable way to arrive. The shuttle was fine. Mostly fine. Okay, it was on fire, but only a little bit, and fire was basically nature's way of saying hello in his opinion. He popped the hatch and stepped out into a crowd of horrified alien faces. Someone was screaming about protocol violations. Someone else was screaming about the lawn. A third person was just screaming. Hey, Jake said, waving cheerfully. I'm Jake. Human, nice to meet you all. Sorry about the lawn, we'll fix it, probably. Is that the main building? Cool architecture, very angular. Who designed it? He started walking toward the entrance. 3 security guards immediately blocked his path. Jake stopped, looked up at them, and grinned. They were huge, like really huge. This was going to be fun. You cannot enter, one of them growled. Protocol dictates all new arrivals must be processed through quarantine. Quarantine? Buddy, I was vaccinated for everything. Even stuff that doesn't exist yet. Pretty sure I'm good. Jake tried to walk around them. They moved to block him again. Mandatory security screening. Look, I respect the hustle, but I've been in that shuttle for 3 weeks, and I really need to find a bathroom. So we can do this the easy way, or we can do this the fun way. And honestly, I'm kind of hoping for the fun way because I'm bored. That's when Commander Vex arrived, moving faster than Jake thought possible for someone with tentacles. The commander looked like he hadn't slept in days, which was fair, because according to Jake's research, he probably hadn't. Mr. Hawkins, Vex said, his voice strained. You're early. Yeah, we got excited. Hope that's okay. Oh, hey, I brought coffee. Jake pulled out a thermos from his jacket. Want some? It's fresh. Well, 3-week-old space fresh, but still pretty good. Coffee is toxic to my species. Huh. That explains so much about the galaxy, actually. Jake took a sip. So where do I check in? Before Vex could answer, a small blue alien student walked past, clearly terrified. Jake noticed immediately. Hey, you okay? You look stressed. The alien squeaked and tried to hide behind another student. First day nerves, Jake said sympathetically. I get it. Here. He pulled out a chocolate bar from his other pocket. Chocolate helps, trust me. Don't give them that, Vex shrieked. Chocolate is poisonous to 70% of known species. Oh, right. My bad. Jake put the chocolate away and instead offered the alien his hand. I'm Jake. What's your name? Trill, the alien stammered. Cool name. Listen, Trill, if you ever need help with anything, just find me. I'm great at making things work. Or explode, sometimes both. It's kinda my thing. Trill stared at Jake's hand like it might bite him, then slowly, very slowly, reached out and shook it. Jake grinned. There you go. We're friends now. That's how it works. Vex was making that deflating balloon sound again. That's when Thork arrived. The massive warrior took one look at Jake, assessed him as a non-threat based purely on size difference, and decided to establish dominance immediately. It's what he did. It always worked. Human, Thork said, looming over Jake like a combat-ready monument. I am Chief of Security Thork. You will follow all regulations, obey all commands, and cause no trouble. Is this understood? Jake looked up at Thork. Then he looked at Thork's massive arms. Then he grinned. Dude, you're huge. I bet you're strong, huh? How much can you lift? Thork blinked. This was not the response he expected. I can lift 3,000 of your Earth pounds. That's impressive. Hey, you ever lose an arm wrestling match? Never. Want to? 5 minutes later, Thork sat across from Jake at a hastily assembled table while the entire Academy security team gathered around to watch their chief absolutely destroy this tiny human who had somehow convinced him to accept a challenge. The match started. Thork applied pressure. Jake's arm didn't budge, but not because he was strong. He was talking. Thork, that's an interesting name. What does it mean? Is it like a family name or more of a warrior title? Because where I'm from, Thor was this god with a hammer, and I feel like there's a connection here. Did you know about that? Probably not. Different galaxy. Anyway, you seem tense. Everything okay? Having a good day? I heard the cafeteria serves something called nutrient paste, which sounds horrifying, but I'm willing to try it. Are you friends with Commander Vex? He seems stressed. Does he always look like that, or is it just me? Because if it's me, I should probably apologize. I don't mean to stress people out. It just happens. You know how it is. Thork's concentration wavered. Just for a second, Jake immediately slammed his hand down. I win! Good game, man. You're really strong. We should work out sometime. Thork stared at his own hand in disbelief. Kip, watching from the doorway, laughed so hard he had to lean against the wall. Vex pulled out the ghost file on his datapad and scrolled to the final entry. This isn't a warning system, he said quietly. It's a survival guide. Yep, Kip agreed, wiping tears from his eyes. Written by people who learned the hard way. Jake was already making friends with the entire security team, explaining the concept of fist bumps and high fives. Trill was following him around like an adopted pet. It had been 30 minutes. Vex drank more tequila. 24 hours after Jake's arrival, the Galactic Academy looked like a completely different institution. Not better, not worse. Just different in ways that violated several administrative guidelines and possibly the laws of reality. It started small. Jake found the Academy's study room system and decided it was inefficient. Within 3 hours, he'd organized a cross-species study group that included species that technically weren't supposed to be able to communicate with each other. They were now teaching each other their respective languages and having what Jake called productive cultural exchange, which seemed to involve a lot of laughing and sharing food that probably shouldn't have been shared. 2 students ended up in the medical bay. Both claimed it was worth it. Then Jake discovered the central reactor had been running at 60% efficiency for the past decade because nobody could figure out what was wrong with it. He took one look at it, said, "Oh, that's just a feedback loop in the tertiary cooling system," and fixed it with a wrench and what Kip was pretty sure was chewing gum. The reactor now ran at 105% efficiency, which should have been impossible. The engineering department was having a collective crisis about their degrees. By hour 18, Jake had somehow started a campus-wide food fight in the zero-gravity cafeteria that involved 17 species, 300 students, and what could only be described as artistic chaos. Vex arrived to shut it down and found everyone laughing, including the cafeteria staff, who normally hated their jobs. "This is a violation of Code 774!" Vex shrieked over the sound of flying nutrient paste. "Yeah, but it's fun!" Jake called back, dodging a flying sandwich. When was the last time anyone here had fun? Vex opened his mouth to respond and realized he didn't have an answer. The real problem started when Jake got bored and decided to explore. The Academy had forbidden zones clearly marked with warning signs in every known language. Jake saw these as suggestions. He found the old archives in a section of campus that was supposed to be sealed. He found the classified research labs that weren't supposed to exist. He found a janitor's closet that apparently contained a stable wormhole to another dimension, which Jake thought was pretty cool, but also a serious safety hazard. You should probably label that better. Vex was filling out incident reports faster than his computer could process them. Then, Jake met the Academy's AI security system. Nexus had been installed 500 years ago and had maintained perfect vigilance over the campus with cold, logical efficiency. Nexus did not make mistakes. Nexus did not have emotions. Nexus certainly did not have opinions. Jake walked up to a terminal and started complaining about the Wi-Fi. "Your wireless network is terrible," Jake said to the screen. "I'm getting like 2 megabits per second. My grandma's house has better internet than this, and she lives in the middle of nowhere. What's the deal?" "Network performance is within acceptable parameters," Nexus responded. "Acceptable for what, a cave?" "Look, I'm not trying to be rude, but this is embarrassing. You're the Galactic Academy. You should have the best tech in known space. Instead, your Wi-Fi can barely load a simple video. That's sad." There was a pause. A very long pause. "You believe the network could be improved?" "Dude, I know it could be improved. Here, let me show you." Jake pulled out his personal tablet and started typing. "See, you've got bandwidth throttling in the wrong places, your routers are configured inefficiently, and your firewall is actually creating more lag than it's preventing. It's like someone set this up 200 years ago, and nobody bothered to update it." "That is precisely what happened." "Yeah, I figured. Look, I can fix this in like an hour if you give me access to the core systems." "That would violate 17 security protocols." "Okay, but consider this. Your security protocols are also outdated and kind of annoying. What if we just upgraded everything, make it better?" "Better is acceptable." That's how Jake became friends with the Academy's AI. By the end of the day, Nexus was taking suggestions from Jake instead of Vex, which created an awkward situation where the commander would give an order and Nexus would respond with, "Jake said we should do it differently." Vex scheduled an emergency meeting with the Galactic Council. It did not go well. The council was hosting Ambassador Krelthor, a dignitary from a species known for taking offense at literally everything. Vex was handling the diplomatic reception with perfect protocol when Jake wandered in, saw the ambassador, and said, "Whoa, cool head tentacles. Are those functional or just decorative?" Krelthor's face turned purple with rage. "You dare insult my ancestral features?" "What? No, I'm genuinely asking. Because they're really symmetrical and I'm wondering if there's like a structural purpose or if it's more of an evolutionary aesthetic thing. I'm into biology. Sorry if that came out wrong." "You mock me." "No, I'm really not. Look, I'm bad at first impressions. Let me start over. Hi, I'm Jake, human. Nice to meet you. Your civilization has existed for like 50,000 years, right? That's incredible. I read about your contributions to quantum mathematics, and they're brilliant. That paper on nonlinear temporal equations literally changed how we think about time travel. Your people are amazing." Krelthor paused. His face returned to its normal color. "You have read our work? Dude, of course, you're famous. Well, you should be famous. I don't know why everyone doesn't know about your research. It's groundbreaking." 20 minutes later, Jake and Krelthor were having an animated discussion about mathematics, while Vex stood in the corner, quietly updating his resume because clearly his career was over. Except it wasn't. Ambassador Krelthor sent a formal communication to the Council praising the Academy for its refreshing approach to diplomatic relations, and specifically mentioned Jake as an example of the kind of innovative thinking the galaxy needs. Vex read the message 3 times. Then he looked at Jake, who was now teaching Thork how to play poker while simultaneously helping Trill with homework and debating physics with Nexus. Kip appeared at Vex's elbow. "Found the final entry in the ghost file." "What does it say?" Kip pulled up his datapad and read aloud. "If you're reading this, it's too late. The humans are already there. You cannot control them. You cannot predict them. You cannot stop them. Just let them do their thing. Fighting it only makes it worse. Trust the chaos. It works out somehow. It always does. Good luck. You'll need it. Vex looked at his office, which Jake had reorganized without permission and which was now somehow more efficient. He looked at the campus, which was louder and messier and more alive than it had been in centuries. He looked at Thork, who was actually smiling for the first time in the 20 years Vex had known him. I hate that this is working, Vex said quietly. Yeah, Kip agreed, but it is working. 3 months later, Commander Vex stood in his office and realized something terrifying. He was happy, not content, not satisfied. Actually happy, which meant the humans had broken him completely. The academy was barely recognizable. The pristine hallways now had artwork from dozens of species. The quiet study areas had become collaborative spaces where students actually talked to each other. The forbidden zones had been reclassified as exploration opportunities with appropriate safety measures, which Jake had personally ensured were implemented after a minor incident involving a gravitational anomaly and 3 students who were now calling themselves the Discovery Club. Enrollment applications had tripled. Species that had never considered the academy before were now desperately trying to get in, specifically requesting to study alongside the humans. The academy's reputation had gone from prestigious and boring to prestigious and actually interesting. Vex's stress tentacles had become permanent, but his therapist said that was fine. Character building even. Jake was somehow teaching a class now. Creative Engineering Solutions was officially listed in the course catalogue, and it was the most popular class in academy history. The curriculum seemed to consist entirely of Jake giving students impossible problems and then encouraging them to solve those problems in the most unconventional ways possible. Last week, a student had created a new form of sustainable energy by combining 3 things that should never be combined. The week before, another student had accidentally invented faster-than-light communication while trying to make a better toaster. The engineering department had stopped filing complaints and started attending the classes themselves. Thork had become Jake's best friend and workout partner, which everyone agreed was the most unlikely friendship in galactic history. They could be seen every morning in the academy gym, Thork lifting impossible weights while Jake did something he called calisthenics and complained about Earth gravity being stronger. You are still weak, Thork would say. Yeah, but I'm strategically weak, Jake would respond. There's a difference. Nobody understood their friendship. It worked anyway. Kip had published a book called Surviving Humans, A Practical Guide for the Unprepared Administrator. It became a bestseller across 40 systems. He was now working on the sequel. Actually, they're not that bad. A revised perspective on Terran integration. The ghost file had updated itself. Vex checked it regularly now, partly out of habit, and partly because it had become oddly comforting. The latest entry appeared last week. To future administrators, if you're reading this because humans just enrolled at your institution, congratulations. Your life is about to become infinitely more complicated and infinitely more interesting. Yes, they will break things. Yes, they will ignore protocols. Yes, they will befriend species that want to kill them and somehow make it work. Let them. The galaxy has been running on the same systems for 10,000 years. Maybe it's time we tried something different. Good luck. You'll need it. But honestly, you'll be fine. Probably. The humans will make sure of it. Vex was reading this entry when his communicator buzzed. It was the docking authority. Commander, we have another human shuttle requesting permission to land. Vex felt his tentacles tense. Then, surprisingly, he laughed. Actually laughed. How many humans this time? 50, sir. It's the second wave of Earth students. Are they following landing protocols? No, sir. They're asking if they can use the zero-gravity cafeteria as a landing pad because it sounds fun. Tell them absolutely not. They're doing it anyway, sir. Of course they are. Vex pulled up the ghost file one more time and added his own entry. To whoever reads this next, the humans will change everything. Let them. It's terrifying and chaotic and somehow, impossibly, it makes everything better. Also, stock up on tequila. You'll understand why. Commander Vex out. He closed the file and walked to the window. Across campus, he could see Jake organizing what looked like an impromptu concert with instruments from 20 different species. Thork was providing security, which mostly meant standing there looking intimidating while secretly enjoying the music. Trill was handing out flyers for the Discovery Club. Nexus had apparently learned how to appreciate art and was providing light effects. The new human shuttle touched down on the cafeteria, exactly as predicted. Vex didn't even flinch. His communicator buzzed again. It was Jake. "Hey, Commander! The new students are here! We're throwing a welcome party! You should come!" "I have administrative duties," Vex said automatically. "You always have administrative duties. Take a break. Live a little. When was the last time you actually enjoyed this job?" Vex opened his mouth to respond with something about professionalism and proper protocol. Then he stopped. When was the last time he'd enjoyed this job? Before the humans, he couldn't remember. After the humans, it was every single chaotic day. "I'll be there in 10 minutes, Vex said. "Awesome. Oh, and bring Kip. Tell him we found another ghost file in the old library. This one's from before humans were expelled. It's hilarious. Apparently we used to be even worse." "How is that possible?" "No idea, but I can't wait to find out." Then Vex walked through the academy toward the cafeteria, passing students from dozens of species, studying together, laughing together, building things together. The ghost file had been right about everything. The humans had changed the galaxy by reminding everyone that rules were just guidelines, that impossible was just a starting point, and that sometimes the best way to solve a problem was to befriend it and see what happened. He arrived at the cafeteria to find absolute chaos. Music, dancing, food from 100 worlds, and 50 new human students who looked exactly as enthusiastic and reckless as Jake had 3 months ago. One of them spotted Vex and waved. "You must be Commander Vex. Jake told us about you. He says you're actually pretty cool once you relax." "Did he?" "Yeah, he also said you make this sound like a deflating balloon when you're stressed. Can you do it now? We want to hear." Vex looked at Jake, who shrugged and grinned. Then Vex looked at the party, at the students, at the academy that had somehow become everything he never knew it needed to be. And then Commander Vex, the most by-the-book administrator in galactic history, did something unprecedented. He joined the party. The ghost file updated itself one final time that night. They got him. The humans got another one. Perfect. Somewhere in the old archives, buried in 10,000 years of forgotten data, the original Ghost Files creator would have been proud. They'd tried to warn the galaxy about humans. They'd tried to explain what made them dangerous. But the real secret was this. Humans weren't dangerous because they broke things. They were dangerous because they made you realize how boring everything had been before they arrived. And once you realized that, there was no going back. The galaxy would never be the same, and honestly, that was probably for the best.